Hi, welcome to the first ever episode of the Koopa podcast. Yeah, alright, that was. Anyways, this is just something that I'm gonna do for fun. I don't expect this to get like a ton of views, but I'm just doing this for myself basically to talk about some stuff that I wouldn't normally talk about. See, the way my YouTube channel works is I review all the latest stuff coming out, like I review the newest movies, the newest TV shows, and pretty soon I'm going to review a new game coming out. Oh, what could that be? Anyways, what could that be? But anyways, I decided with House of the Dragon wrapping up its first season in a few days, I'm going to go back and look at Game of Thrones. Yeah, so the way this podcast is going to work for the most part is I'm going to be looking at things that haven't come out recently, uh, just some old stuff that I want to take a look at. So yeah, this is the first ever episode, and I wanted it to be something big. So I figured, what bigger than one of the biggest shows of the 2010s, Game of Thrones. Let me tell you a little bit about my experience with it. So I had never seen Game of Thrones for the first. Actually, I didn't watch it when it was on. I knew what it was. I knew it was like a medieval fantasy show that was very popular, but I never watched it for two reasons. Number one, I didn't have HBO. My family just didn't have it. And number two, even if we did have it, there's no way my parents would have let me watch it. Which doesn't really matter because I was watching a lot of stuff that I wasn't supposed to be watching when I was younger. I basically watched all of BoJack Horseman way before I was old enough to really understand what it meant, but whatever. So, I never watched Game of Thrones, and for a few years after that, even after it ended, I still didn't watch it because I watched other stuff. I don't know why, but growing up, I missed out on a lot of huge pop culture milestones. Like, a lot of things I watched, I didn't even start until after they were already over. Breaking Bad, the Harry Potter series, the Lord of the Rings film trilogy, I watched all of those years after they were really, like, in the forefront of pop culture. So, when Game of Thrones ended, and people said, oh, the ending sucked, I was like, oh, well, I guess I'll never watch it because the ending sucked. But as I got older, I realized that, you know what? Sometimes people are haters, sometimes they're wrong. I like plenty of things that people hate. Like, I like Iron Man 3. I enjoy X-Men 3. You know, I didn't think Toy Story 4 was that bad. Actually, that's not a very good example. A lot of people like Toy Story 4. um, I tend to go against the pack. You know, I have kind of garbage taste in movies and shows sometimes. So I was like, maybe I'll like the last season. Maybe I'll think it's really awesome. And did I? Well, we'll get to that when we get to that. But for now, let's start with season one. But before we get to that, let me just say, a lot of people in my life watch this show and love it. A lot of people in my family watched it and loved it. I didn't watch it for a while, but I got the urge in uh, earlier this year. I would say about maybe April, May, somewhere around there. I decided, you know what? I'm gonna watch Game of Thrones. I need a new show to watch. I haven't watched one in a while. So I decided, you know what? I'm gonna go through all of it, all 8 seasons, and I'm gonna try and watch it so that I can also watch House of the Dragon because I missed out on the big, like when Game of Thrones was on, everybody was talking about it, and I like being a part of that. I like watching something and going online and seeing what everybody's saying about it, good or bad. And I wanted to be a part of that for House of the Dragon, but I figured, nah, I can't watch House of the Dragon if I haven't seen Game of Thrones, so I'm gonna watch Game of Thrones, and I did all 8 seasons. I watched the first 2 seasons. And then I kind of, well, no, I watched like the first season, and then I kind of lost a little interest for a while. And then season two kind of started out slowly, so I was like, I'm not really into this show. I mean, it's okay, but I'll get back to it eventually. And then around season three, I got hooked, and I binged this show with ferocity. I really fell in love with this show. I don't think it's perfect. I think even the first 6 seasons have flaws in them, but we'll get to them in a bit. For now, let's talk about Game of Thrones. Okay, so season one starts out with the Stark family, the Lannister family, all these great characters it introduces to you. I love the first episode of this show, which is weird because I watched it actually a few years before I started it this year. I watched the first episode before season 8 came out because I was like, maybe I can catch up in time for the final season. I watched the first episode and I was a dumb kid and I had no idea what was happening, so I'm like, you know what? Maybe this show ain't for me. I'll come back to it in a few years. But yeah, that first scene establishes almost every character perfectly. You see Ned and Kate looking down on their kids. You know, they're shooting arrows and they're having fun together. John and Rob are kind of teasing Bran a little bit. Rickon's being useless. Arya is showing that she's a badass, and Sansa is showing that she has a lot of great qualities to make a great queen one day, maybe. Maybe not a great queen, but you get what I mean. She's acting like Sansa in the first scene, you know. And then of course Kate gives John that look of just disgust, and you're wondering as a watcher, unless you've read the books, what the hell did John do, man? What's up with that? By the way, I never read the books. Just telling you that right now, so I'm not going to compare anything too much. But I will bring them up a little bit later. But yeah, first season, you introduce not only the Starks, but also the Lannisters and the Baratheons. You introduce Joffrey and Cersei and Jaime and Robert. And I remember thinking, damn, this Cersei is kind of annoying. I wonder if she'll be a main character. She'll probably just be a villain for like the first season. I didn't really know how the show worked. I didn't realize that it was not going to go the way I thought it was going to go until much later. But yeah, that first episode ending with Cersei and Jaime doing it and then pushing Bran out of the window. By that moment, I was like, God damn, these Lannisters, they ain't right, man. They ain't right. Season 1, I will admit, I'm not as crazy about Season 1 as some people. I know some people love it, and I think it's really good. But compared to a lot of the other seasons, I don't know. I'm just not really interested in it. And I think that has to do with the character of Ned Stark. I don't think he's a bad character or anything, but I don't know. Even when I was watching the first season and I didn't know he was going to die, I was just kind of like, I mean, he's all right. He's just kind of there as a protagonist. There's nothing about him I really love. He's just the typical righteous guy who's really smart. But then at the end of season 1, they killed him, and I was like, whoa, I did not expect that. And I was actually kind of glad they did because it told me that this show wasn't going to play by the rules until it does later. This show really surprised. Whoa, sorry. It really surprised me with that first episode, or that first season, rather. There were a lot of great moments in season 1. Like, I love the moment where Littlefinger's like, I did warn you not to trust me, which is something that he could say 1,000 times in this show. But yeah, this season, it's got a lot of great stuff. It introduces Tyrion Lannister, who is an awesome character. I love that trial he has where Bronn shows up and saves his ass, you know. And we also meet Daenerys Targaryen, who is another really great character. But the first few scenes with her are just like, damn, this girl's got it really bad. I mean, she's forced into marriage with this barbaric tribal chief, and then he basically sexually assaults her, which is kind of weird, but I mean, I guess she kind of loves him later, so I don't know. I guess, I don't know. But anyways, Daenerys Targaryen, she was pretty cool in the first season, but I didn't really care that much until the end when her dragons hatched. I mean, I didn't know any big spoilers in this show, but I knew dragons were in it, so when they told her, like, here are some dragons, they're definitely not going to, or here are some dragon eggs, they're definitely not going to hatch, I was like, they're probably going to hatch. But yeah, Daenerys was fine this season. Overall, season 1 is pretty good. Not my favorite, but decent. And then we get to season 2 with Joffrey coming into power. I mean, he came into power at the end of season 1, but he really gets to show off how much power he really has in season 2. And I thought season 2 was about the same as season 1. I thought it had its moments. Like, I thought the Battle of Blackwater was great. You know, Daenerys going to, I think that place was called Karth, was pretty interesting. They introduced some characters such as Davos and Melisandre. That's cool. I'm pretty sure Sam was introduced in season 1. Was he? I don't know. But yeah, season two. I don't really have anything to say about season two. It was just pretty good. You know, I was at this point with the show. I was like, yeah. I mean, this show's pretty cool, but I'm not like obsessed with it. But it's decent. It's not bad. It's something to watch. Uh, and then after, oh, funny story by the way. I watched season two, episode seven, and then I watched season two, episode eight. I got like 20 minutes in, and then I paused it, and I think I accidentally pressed like the back button because I went to get a drink. I came back, I hit play, and then the Battle of Blackwater was happening, and I was just like, "What the hell? Did I miss something? Was I not paying attention?" And then I got like 40 minutes into the episode before my dumbass realized that I accidentally skipped the rest of episode 8. So I had to go back and watch episode 8, and then I watched episode 9. So, yeah, that's some funny stuff. Very funny stuff. Season 2 also has Jaime captured by the Starks, and he ends up on a quest with Brienne of Tarth. She's going to bring him back to the Lannisters, which is a lot of fun. This season also has the character of Tywin really introduced into the forefront. It's got Tyrion being Tyrion, Cersei being a bitch. It's just a really, really good season. Not much complaints. Although I will say Melisandre giving birth to a shadow demon and then having it kill that guy, I forgot his name. Fuck, I forgot his name. Sorry. But yeah, killing that guy, I think his name was Renly? That was a little random. But this season also introduced Marjorie Tyrell, who was pretty cool. Yeah, season 2 is decent. And then season 3 is where the show really kicked into high gear for me. It just had so much good stuff. Had Jon and Ygritte coming together, and then they had Arya and the Hound palling around together. Just had a lot of great stuff. It had, you know, again, Joffrey just being the most annoying little shit in the world. And this is also the season where Tyrion and Sansa got married. I just felt really bad for Sansa this whole season. I mean, yeah, it was pretty shitty of her to pick Joffrey over her dad, but that doesn't mean she deserves any of this stuff to happen. It's just horrible. Although, I will say one thing I kind of found dumb about this season was Shay's behavior. Shay is Tyrion's girlfriend. She gets really upset with him because he's marrying Sansa, and he literally tells her, like, hey, I don't want to do this. I'm basically forced into it. And she still gets mad at him like he's cheating on her or something. I'm like, come on. Tyrion, you deserve better. But we'll get to her later. Season 3 also has, of course, one of the most iconic moments in television history, the Red Wedding. Jesus Christ. What a horrible sequence to watch. But also, from a storytelling standpoint, one of the best, if not the best, episode of the show. It's not my personal favorite, but if someone were to say it were their favorite, I cannot argue with that at all. This episode is just horrifying to watch. I had heard about the Red Wedding. I knew the Red Wedding was something that happened, but I didn't know what exactly it was. And I had already seen a few weddings by this point in the show, so I just thought to myself, oh, maybe I've already seen it. That was kind of underwhelming. I really thought during Tyrion and Sansa's wedding, that was the Red Wedding. I'm like, oh, is something going to happen? No, not really. And then when we got to this wedding, I don't know. I guess I had seen so many that I was like, yeah, whatever, nothing's going to happen. And then all of a sudden, Rob and Talisa and Kate, they all die. It's horrifying. I mean, seeing a pregnant woman get stabbed in the stomach multiple times, that is just, oh my God. And the funny thing is, I actually watched this episode right before I left for work. And my whole shift, I was just distraught. Thank God I didn't have to deal with customers that day, because I don't think I could have been able to handle it. I was just making pizzas in the background. That's probably my favorite thing to do at my job. Make pizzas. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, the Red Wedding. The Red Wedding is just... I mean, you've heard it all before. It's one of the most shocking moments ever. So tragic. Yeah. Season 3 is awesome. But it isn't as good as my favorite season of the show, which is Season 4. It's got so many great moments, episodes, characters at their peak. You got so... Like, everything people... Like, everything that you love about Game of Thrones is in Season 4. You've got so many iconic moments. Joffrey's death, Tyrion's trial, the Watchers on the Wall fight, Ygritte's death. Arya and the Hound palling around, Brienne of Tarth and Jaime on their little adventure. Or not, oh no, that's season 3, my bad. But you still got some cool Jaime stuff. He returns to King's Landing after losing his hand. This season is just awesome. This is my favorite season of the show. And I didn't even mention some other stuff. Like Bran is actually at his most interesting this season. Oberyn versus the Mountain, resulting in his death. And then Tyrion killing Tywin. It's just awesome. This whole season is just one crazy thing happening after another. It's awesome, man. Joffrey's death was something I did not see coming, but now looking back on it, I probably should have. I mean, you've got all these characters that hate him. Of course they're going to kill him in a public area, right? I mean, not like, they're going to kill him discreetly, but they want to make sure everyone sees him die. You know what I mean? Because Joffrey's just that much of a prick. But yeah, Joffrey's death leads into Tyrion's trial, which is a great scene. You got Arya and the Hound, of course. I like this duo because they're just kind of hanging out away from the show, doing their own thing. The Hound just takes Arya. He's trying to take her to her family so he can get some money out of it, which leads to... Ooh, I just dropped something. Which leads to that great scene where they take... where he takes Arya to her aunt, but unfortunately they were too late and she was killed by Littlefinger a few days before, and Arya just laughs about it. That's a great scene. The Hound is awesome. Arya is awesome, but we'll get into Arya a little later. You also got Daenerys coming into her own this season. You know, this was the first season where I really felt invested in her character. I liked her in the other 3 seasons, but I don't know, something about this season where I was like, damn, Dany is just a badass. She just goes wherever she needs, conquering and taking what she wants. She's going to build up her army while also freeing the people that she loves. You know? Dany's a champion of the people. All this petty stuff in Westeros is going on. And little do you know, this one woman is going to build an army from the ground up and just take it all. And restore honor to the Targaryen name after Jaime basically destroyed it in one fell swoop. Awesome. Dany locking up her dragons at the end of this season was also a great moment. You know, it was sad, but you know, you understood why she did it. And of course, I mentioned this earlier, but Tyrion's trial, man. It's one of the most iconic Tyrion scene, probably the most iconic Tyrion scene in the show. And to be honest with you, this is probably the last season of the show where Tyrion really is just at his like most badass. Because it shows how smart he is, how witty he is, and just how awesome of a character he is. Him telling everybody that him protecting them is just for nothing, and he should have let them all die during the Battle of Blackwater, saying he wished he had killed Joffrey. Whether you believe that or not, you know, it's still a great, great speech. I demand a trial by combat. Ah, it's so badass, man. Yeah, Tyrion's the best. He was my favorite character, and he's arguably the main character of this season. And he deserved that Emmy that he won. Of course, Tyrion's trial leads into the battle between Oberyn and the Mountain. In any other story, Oberyn would take him down, Tyrion would be free, everything's cool. But that's just not how that's just not how Game of Thrones works. Oberyn has the Mountain beat, lying on his back, but unfortunately he got cocky. He says, "Come on, you gotta say it. You raped my sister. You murdered my sister. You piece of shit." But unfortunately, the Mountain kills him. Damn. It was horrifying. You know, I gotta tell you, I'm not very squeamish, but that was the one scene that really disturbed me. I mean, other than the Red Wedding. When it comes to violence, I'm usually pretty good. But I feel like with this, I don't know, maybe it's the fact that it happened to a character I really liked. And just hearing that character scream his lungs out as he's dying, knowing that this is it, it was just horrifying, man. It was just terrible. But yeah, that scene, everybody knows how badass that scene is. I don't need to talk about it anymore. Tyrion escapes with the help of Varys, but he kills Shay and Tywin, so that's really cool. Man, Shay, that bitch. I mean, not only did she get pissy with Tyrion for being like, "Why are you marrying Sansa?" But she also, like, testified against him on trial, lying under oath, saying that like, yeah, he and Tyrion conspired with each other to kill Joffrey. You bitch. Whatever. I wasn't happy he killed her though. I mean, it was still a really sad scene. I did not expect that in a million years. Tyrion to kill Shay. That was shocking. And I think that's a pretty underrated scene in terms of shock factor. Like I never saw it coming. You also got your boy Jon Snow. I haven't talked about Jon Snow enough. Jon Snow is awesome. You know, in the first 3 seasons, he just goes on this little adventure. He's the most like heroic, righteous dude in the show. He's great. Love him. And he goes. Eventually, he gets basically kidnapped by the wildlings, and he meets Tormund. But more importantly, he meets Ygritte, who he actually married in real life. Good for him. But yeah, Ygritte was a really fun character. You know, she takes everything Jon knows and just calls bullshit on the whole thing, which is great. I love their dynamic together. They have so much chemistry. You know, it's a great opposites attract kind of thing. I love that episode where they're climbing the wall. I think it was in season 3. That was a great episode. And the whole Wildlings versus the Wall feud culminates in the Watchers on the Wall battle, which is just, it's awesome. It's the perfect example of how to bring emotion into an epic scale sequence. Obviously, from, you know, a filmmaking and just visual standpoint, it's awesome. It's in the dark, but you can see everything, which I can't say for some other battles in the series. You know, it's just, not only does it look great, it's got so many great action, violent moments, whatever, but it also has a lot of emotion behind it. I mean, you can see the torment on Jon. I mean, he doesn't want to fight the wildlings, but he has to because he made an oath to defend the wall. And of course, Samwell and Tarly, who is another fun character, has his little romantic moment with Gilly, which is fun. I like Sam and Gilly's little romance. It's like this little thing in the background, but I don't know. I always thought it was cute. I liked it. But yeah, this results in Ygritte's death, which is really sad, by that piece of shit Ollie. Fuck him. But anyways, yeah, Watchers on the Wall, awesome episode. Probably my favorite battle of the show, and probably my favorite episode of the show in general. It's just great, you know. But yeah. Then you get into season 5. This is where the cracks start to show a little bit. Don't get me wrong, I still think season 5 is pretty great. It's got a lot of good stuff in it. But it does have some subplots that just either are interesting or in hindsight kind of went nowhere. I mean, but it's got some really good stuff. Like it has Tyrion and Dany meeting, which is awesome. And it has Hardhome, which is a great episode. I don't really have much to say about it other than, yeah, it's awesome. It really shows how scary the Night King is and that Jon's got a lot to deal with. Now let's talk about Arya. I've always liked Arya, even in the first 2 seasons. You know, I liked her when she was on her little adventures with Hot Pie and that guy that can change his face. That was cool. When she was with the Hound, I've always liked Arya because she always felt like she was in like her own little show, you know, and that was neat. She's a badass, and Maisie Williams did a great job playing her. Unfortunately, this whole Faces storyline is the dumbest shit. I mean, on paper, it's cool. She's an assassin, right? So it makes sense that she would get this, like, shape-shifting ability, you know? That would help her kill people, which it does later on in the show. But when you watch it, it's just kind of, like, taking up too much time. And at the end of the season, she gets stabbed, like, 5 times in the stomach, and she's just okay? What? I mean, I'm all for characters surviving, but come on. That's ridiculous. Although being stabbed in the stomach, you could survive that. It's been known to happen. But I don't know. It just felt a little weird to me. But yeah, that whole storyline was just kind of dumb for me. I didn't really like it. I preferred when Arya was hanging out with the Hound. Yeah. That's all I got to say about that. Like I said earlier, Tyrion meets Dany, which is really awesome. At the beginning of the season, Tyrion's drunk and miserable, and Varys is like, yo, there's this woman named Daenerys Targaryen, and you should probably help her because I believe in her. I've always liked that Dany, like the people that follow Dany genuinely believe in her. They're not just doing it because, well, I guess it's convenient for me. They honestly believe in what she's doing, and it's really nice. And I love Tyrion and Dany's first meeting. It's like it's almost like watching a crossover show between 2 completely different series. It's brilliant. Unfortunately, because of this, Tyrion does take a little bit of a backseat compared to a lot of other characters in the show, but it's still a lot of fun. People say that episode 9 of every season is the best, but season 5 is the one exception to that. I don't really think episode 9 of season 5 is all that great. I think that scene where Danny's dragon shows up and kills everybody isn't very good. I mean, it's fine, but I don't know. The CG wasn't great. It looked kind of silly, but I don't know. It's still okay. It leads to her getting kidnapped, which leads to a cool scene later where she walks out of the fire or whatever. All right. Cersei and Jaime have a lot going on in the season. They have to deal with the High Septon, who I fucking hated. I hated the High Septon, man. I mean, don't get me wrong. I fucking hated Cersei, but, in a good way. I love Cersei as a character, but I love to hate her. You know what I mean? Because she's Cersei. But, God, I fucking hated the High Septon. I just wanted that fucker to die. And maybe it's just because I hate people who do awful things and use, like, religion and stuff like that to justify it. But, God, I hated the High Septon. And that scene where she did the walk of shame and they had that woman going, shame, shame, shame in the background. Ugh, it pissed me off so much. Don't get me wrong, I hate Cersei, but seeing that was just... That was harder to watch for me than the Red Wedding. Genuinely. Because it goes on so long. But I think it was the right choice to make it go on for a long time because, I mean, you need to be there with Cersei, She hates it and you hate it. But yeah. Also, Jaime and Bronn fight the sea snakes. Who gives a fuck? But season 5 ends with a bang with the death and resurrection of Jonathan Snowly. Yep. Okay, I'm going to be honest with you. I kind of knew Jon Snow would come back. Don't get me wrong, his death was still shocking, but I had already heard the rumors about them making a Jon Snow sequel series. So when he died, I just thought to myself, he'll be fine. I mean, it was still a great scene, but I don't know. Looking back on it, why did they bring back Jon? Why did Melisandre need him? Did I miss something? I guess they just liked him, so they brought him back. But yeah, fuck Ollie. Thank God he killed that kid. You also got Bran, who was absent from Season 5. To this day, I have no idea why. I guess because he just spent all of Season 5 just training and spazzing out. But Bran he was alright. He was never my favorite character, but he's okay in this season. He's just kind of doing his own thing. Becoming the three-eyed raven. And, seeing the backstory of a lot of characters, which is neat. And it leads to the saddest scene of the show. Hodor, hold the door. Just heartbreaking. Good old Hodor, man. He had one job and he did it. Good for him. Yeah. I also forgot to mention a few characters. Like Ramsay Bolton, who is a piece of shit. I mean, I liked watching him more than Joffrey. Joffrey was just annoying, but I mean, character-wise, he was good. But Bolton was in the same level as Cersei for me, where I loved to hate him. He was so entertainingly evil, He's just evil and he loves it. Kind of like an Emperor Palpatine kind of thing. But yeah. Oh my god, I didn't even fucking mention Theon. Theon gets, well, he gets his dick cut off. You already know. Very tragic. Yeah, I don't know. Theon was kind of a dick, but and at first I was like, yeah, fuck Theon. I'm glad he's getting his comeuppance. But I don't know. After like the 50th scene where Ramsay treats him like shit and calls him Reek, I was like, okay, maybe he's had enough. I don't know. Yeah, Theon. But one of the dumbest things in the show is Littlefinger giving Sansa to the Boltons. I get it. Littlefinger kind of only cares about himself, and it probably is in character for him to do it. But I don't know. I mean, doesn't he love her? I feel like that decision just kind of takes a lot of complexity out of his character, And it just feels like, oh, we need this to happen, and this is the only way we can really get it to happen. And then there's that scene where Sansa marries Ramsay and gets sexually assaulted by her, which, again, like the Red Wedding and the Oberyn Mountain scene, not a very fun scene to watch for obvious reasons. Thankfully, Jon comes in, and it leads to the Battle of the Bastards, baby. Nice. So, I don't like this fight as much as the Watchers on the Wall fight, but I still think it's a pretty great fight. So here's the thing. Rickon dies. Who gives a fuck? Rickon was the most boring Stark ever. Tell me one personality trait that motherfucker had. Well, he was kind of stupid because he ran in a straight line instead of zigzagging. What the fuck was up with that? Whatever. So, John, he runs into battle like the righteous dude he is. I also like that scene where he meets that girl. I forgot her name. She's playing Ellie in the Last of Us show. I forgot her name. Anyways, that was funny. He's like, "Can we have your troops?" You're like, "Yeah, we have 5 of them. You can have them all." Oh. But yeah. Yeah, this fight's pretty cool. You know, Ramsey pretty much had it won unless Sansa, showed up with the veil. See, here's the stupid thing. First off, Sansa showing up with the veil was just kind of like, oh, really? You took your sweet ass time, and they made their dramatic entrance. But yeah, I mean, it was kind of lame. It was like, oh, I remember thinking like, how is John gonna get out of this? And then that's how he got out of it. It's like, oh, by Deus Ex Machina, his weighing out of this. And then I was like, why didn't Sansa tell him about the veil? And then later she's like, hey, sorry for not telling you about it. I'm like, oh, awesome, we're finally gonna get a reason. And then John's like, nah, it's fine, we won, so it didn't really matter. And then the scene just ends. And you're just like, oh, that was it? That's why? Okay. Yeah. And then season 6, episode 10, The Winds of Winter, is another awesome episode. You got Cersei blowing up the building with green lightning. No, it wasn't lightning. It was fire. I'd always wondered, ever since season 2, when that green fire was going to really come into place after Blackwater. Because I figured they wouldn't just use it for that, right? And then a few seasons went by and they didn't even mention it, and I was just like, oh, okay, well, I guess that's it. But then we see it, and Cersei uses it to blow up the Sept of Baelor. Some people don't like this scene because they think it's cartoonish, but I don't know. I thought it was really cool. I thought it showed how smart Cersei was and how when you back her up against the wall, she will fuck you up. I mean, Cersei had all the odds against her, and not only did she win, but she ended up sitting on the Iron Throne. I mean, that's awesome. I don't know. I just love the scene for Cersei's character. It just shows, like, you really do not want to fuck with her. And then Jaime showing up, like, what the fuck happened? That was cool. So yeah, season 6 ended off really well. Daenerys goes off to Westeros, and you're like, awesome. This is where the show is finally going to go into the climax. We're going to finally see everything we've been dreaming about. Well, I mean, for a few seasons now. Other people had years to think about this shit. So, season 7. Yeah. Season 7's plot is so much simpler than other Game of Thrones seasons. For better and for worse. On one hand, I like it because it feels like, oh, well, I mean, everything's kind of coming together. The problem, well, not the problem, but the thing about Game of Thrones is that every plot line was so separate, but now everything is coming together. Everybody's finally meeting each other and we're reaching the end game. That's cool. But on the other hand, Game of Thrones was always a show about complexities and nuances with characters, and now it's just kind of turning into a good versus evil story, which is fine. It's entertaining, but I don't know. I like the other seasons a little more for just how much subtlety there was in the writing. But I don't hate season 7. A lot of people do, and there are things in season 7 that I don't like, but there's also things I really like. I love the first scene where Jon and Dany meet. It's exactly what I wanted. Like, I always thought, like, man, it'd be cool if Jon and Dany met. What would they talk about? What would they do? Would they get along? Would they hate each other? I mean, they're both, like, the most heroic characters in the show, right? So naturally they would get along. But this scene really did a good job at showing that they have different agendas. Jon has the White Walkers and the Night King to deal with, and Dany has taking over Westeros to deal with. And I think it's a really funny scene of Jon being like, hey, I'll help you and stuff, but you need to help me with this zombie horde that's coming to Westeros. It's like if I went into the White House and said, Mr. President, Santa Claus is real. He has his army of elves, and they're coming to destroy America. It's like if I said that, but I was right. But how the fuck would you prove that? It's a really funny scene, But it's awesome to see these characters, these two groups coming together, Not only does Jon meet Dany, but he also meets Missandei. Tyrion. You know, you also get to see some other interactions like Varys with the other characters. It's really great. So yeah, I mean, season 7 isn't perfect though. I think episode 2, 3, and 4 are all really great in terms of the John and Danny stuff. You know, that's neat. It's neat seeing them come together, figure out what they got to do, figure out their plans, seeing them butt heads. It's awesome. Unfortunately, the shit in Winterfell this season is real bad. First off, Bran comes back, and I was like, oh, nice, Arya, and then they hard cut to Bran, and I was like, oh, god damn it. It's this kid who always has a shitty look on his face. Whatever. But yeah, Bran shows up, and there's also this really, really dumb drama with Arya and Sansa. It's like so pointless. It's just there because they needed those characters to. They just need to give those characters something to do. And then Littlefinger, who is one of the smartest characters in the show, is outsmarted by 3 kids. Come on, man. Also, I forgot to mention in season 6, I love the reunion between Jon and Sansa. It was actually one of the few scenes in the show to actually make me cry. It was so wonderful. But yeah, that stuff was dumb. But like I said, I still liked all the stuff with Jon Snow. He was one of my favorite characters. And then we get to, in my opinion, not the worst, but the dumbest episode of the show, Beyond the Wall. So the plan in this episode is the stupidest fucking shit I've ever heard from a show that is that has some of the smartest writing I've ever witnessed. So basically, they need Cersei, right? They're like, okay, we need Cersei to be on board with us. But they decide that in order to get her to believe that White Walkers are real, they're gonna go to the north, and they're gonna grab a White Walker from a horde of White Walkers and take him to Cersei. This is assuming that, number 1, Cersei won't have them killed as soon as they step foot on King's Landing. Number 2, she'll even care. Number 3, the White Walker won't die on the way there. And number 4, assuming that they can do this within the span of like, what, a week? The White Walkers are coming, man, and they're coming fast. And you're going to go all the way north and bring him back to King's Landing? Come on, that's going to take forever. And that introduces another problem with this season. Fast travel. In the other seasons, it was a pain in the ass to get anywhere. But in this season, it just seems like they can go wherever they want, whenever they want. Like, it's like, oh, we need to get from east to west in the span of an episode. Okay, they just take a little raft and they're there. What? Come on, man. The dumbest episode of season 7. Bar none. And then we get to the finale, which is, it's fine. It's got a really cool scene with all the characters together talking about the White Walkers, and I love Cersei just being a bitch and just being like, yeah, the White Walkers are coming, but I don't care. And Jaime's all there telling her, like, if they win, we're fucked. If the North wins, we're fucked. What are you doing? You see, a lot of people have their own interpretations of why Cersei didn't care. But in my opinion, I think Cersei was like borderline suicidal. So I think she at this point in the show. So I feel like she didn't really care if she died either way. She's like, why would I help? What do I have to live for? All my kids are dead. That's really the only thing Cersei really cared about in the world were her kids. And I guess Jaime to some extent. But yeah. Season 7's ending was cool. It had the Night King taking over the dragon, and they destroy the wall, which is neat. But yeah. I mean, the Night King taking over the dragon was really goofy, but I don't know. At this point in the show, I kind of accepted that it was getting a little simpler, so I thought it was neat. Alright, everybody. We've gone through the first 7 seasons of Game of Thrones. So you all know what that means. It's time for Season 8. Pretty much regarded as the most disappointing season in television history. Even the last season of Dexter isn't this disappointing, because by that point the show was already so shit that everybody knew that it was going to end poorly. But Game of Thrones, even though Season 7 was a little subpar for some people, I mean, I still liked it, even though I can acknowledge it had plenty of issues. People were really excited for Season 8 to see how all their favorite characters would meet their end. Who's going to die? Who's going to live? Who's going to have a happy ending? Who's going to have a tragic ending? Everybody was excited. Me personally, I knew going in that people were disappointed by season 8, but I was actually very optimistic about it. I thought to myself, I like a lot of things people hate. I think I'm going to enjoy this season. I was on such a high with Game of Thrones that I thought, I think I'm going to like it. I really think I'm going to enjoy the season a lot. Episode 8, nothing really happens. It's just kind of whatever. Everybody's in Winterfell. Whoop-diddy fucking do. But I really like the ending in episode 1. Jamie shows up, and you're like, oh, nice. Jamie joining the good guys. He's on his redemption arc. And then he has eye contact with Bran, which is the most awkward shit ever, because he pushed that kid out the window. And I love that scene in episode 2 where Bran is like, the things we do for love. That's like his way of being like, Jamie, you piece of shit. By the way, what do I think about the Jon and Dany romance? It kind of felt like fan service. Like I said, these are the two most like righteous and heroic characters in the show. So having them become a couple just feels like, I don't know. I wouldn't say it's like fan fiction level, but it is just kind of like, yeah, I mean, I guess from a writing standpoint, I'm sure some fans wanted this. But I don't know. As a couple, they're just, I guess they make sense on paper, but the execution isn't very good. They don't really have very good chemistry. And I don't know. I just never really felt like they were in love with each other. I don't know. I felt like they just kind of were friends with benefits more than an actual, like, passionate, loving couple. But whatever. Episode 1 was fine. But episode 2, which is the best episode of the season, I don't really know how others feel about this episode, but me personally, I loved it. I love this episode for so many reasons. The entire episode is just everybody, like, coming together and being like, these are our last moments of peace before the end times, basically. A lot of people don't like Deathly Hallows 1, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows 1, but I really like that movie because for the same reasons. These are our last moments with these characters. Their last moments where they can love each other and just be together before everything goes to shit, before the end times. And this is the Game of Thrones version of that. You get all the characters just hanging out and just being together and enjoying each other's company before they go on the biggest battle of their lives. And of course, you got that wonderful scene where Brienne is knighted by Jaime. Brienne was one of the best characters in the show for me. She is so likable, and her relationship with Jaime was one of the most interesting. And seeing her knighted was just beautiful. Yeah, I love this episode. Was it fan servicey? Yeah, but I don't care. I loved it. All right. So I've talked pretty positively, well, relatively positively about season 8 so far, right? Let's get into these last 4 episodes. Starting with the long night. This is the battle that this show has been building up to for the entire show. I mean, there was the Battle of Blackwater and the Watchers on the Wall and the Battle of the Bastards, but this is the battle of Game of Thrones. Every character you know and love has come together to face this common threat, the Night King and his army. People are going to die. People are going to perish on both sides. I was genuinely expecting like half the cast to die from this. And I'm not saying that if they did kill half the cast, it would be great writing-wise. I'm not saying I wanted every character to die just to be epic. But I felt like not a lot of characters of importance die. The only real characters I can think of were Jorah, Theon, and that girl whose name I forgot. It sounds like I hate that character, but I thought she was fine. Oh, I also forgot to mention Stannis killing Shireen. Fuck Stannis. That was a really hard to watch scene too. No, but yeah, I mean, Theon was the only character who I felt like had a really satisfying arc in this episode. Him dying, him sacrificing himself, him, Bran telling him you're a good man. It was a great scene. But the writing in this episode is very weak. For one, Dany has a dragon. I feel like she wouldn't struggle as much as she did in this fight. And then like halfway through the episode, we just stop and we focus on Arya in like the library. And it's really just kind of boring. It's just like, oh, okay, I'm watching her just sneak around and stuff. Whatever. And even though everything is loud and there's fire and people are dying in the background, you can't hear shit when you're inside. That's a little weird. I don't know. But I still like this episode. You know, it's still fun to watch all these characters fight. But I don't know. Oh, did I say it's fun to watch all these characters fight? Well, it's fun to watch things that you can see. Yeah, I know. Everybody's already said this. You can't see shit! I watched this episode in the dark on a big TV, so it wasn't as bad for me as it was for other people. But I was still like, God damn, can you turn the brightness up a little bit? At least Melisandre was able to help me see for a little bit. You know, when she put out the fire. That was kind of cool. There's also a lot of weird scenes in this episode that don't make any sense. Like Sam and Jamie and Brienne are like pinned up against the wall with the White Walkers, and you're like, oh, they're fucked. And then like later you see them and they're just fine. I guess they got out of it. All right, whatever. Yeah, the Long Night. It had some cool stuff. You know, it had a lot of great character moments. Like I said, I love seeing all these characters come together to fight a common threat, but there's just a lot of plot holes and a lot of really weird, just dumb shit, you know? Like John, like that dragon that the Night King took over, its fire was enough to knock down the entire wall, but it's not enough to burn down a rock that John's hiding behind. Come on, man. As for the ending, which is Arya killing the Night King, of course. So, number one, a lot of people say that this was a girl power moment. Like, shut up. No, it wasn't. This is the same season where, well, we'll get to that later. But yeah, this I did not see this as like a dumb pandering SJW moment. I fucking hate people that are like, "Oh, this shit is woke because a woman did something." Shut the fuck up. Okay? But that's a rant for another day. But anyways, the idea of Arya killing the Night King, I don't hate it. I think it's fine. But I don't know. It's just kind of comes out of nowhere. Did Arya even know who the Night King was before all this shit? I don't think so. Unless I fucking missed something. It just feels weird. The Night King was built up to be this big, badass threat, and I thought that the way they would kill him was going to be something really cool. Like, I thought, like, I don't know, maybe he had to kill, like, more people than the Night King. Like, you know, all that group he was always hanging out with, that biker gang? Maybe he had to kill all four of them to kill all of the guys. Maybe that would have made more sense. So you could have this Arya moment for more characters. Like, you could have Arya kill one and Jon kill one and I don't know, Sam kill another. It would have been really cool to see Sam do that considering he was like the first character in the series to kill a White Walker, you know? But no, Arya sneaks up behind him and stabs him with the dagger. And that just leads to all the White Walkers dying. Yeah, alright. I mean, I get what D&D were saying by saying, "Oh, well, we didn't want Jon to do it because that would have been expected. So we had Arya do it." Listen, sometimes predictability isn't a bad thing. Sometimes it's nice to want something and then get it. Listen, I'm all for subverting expectations when it makes sense in the story and leaves you wanting more. But in this case, it just felt like they did it just because they didn't want Jon to do it. So D&D were like, all right, let's throw this dart at the board. Okay, we got Arya. Arya's going to kill the Night King. You know what I mean? It's like, okay. Jon didn't even have any like meaningful encounter with the Night King in this episode, in my opinion. I mean, you're expecting something really awesome, like maybe like I don't fucking know, like Jon on his dragon or some shit, and he's fighting the Night King on his dragon, or fucking Bran enters the Night King's mind and destroys him from the inside, something. But no, you get Arya sneaking up behind him and then stabbing him. That's fine. Eh. It's not the worst way for the Night King to go out, but I'll admit it is kind of lame. And then, yeah, the Long Night. I don't hate it. I think it's cool from like a dumb brain, like turn off your brain standpoint, where it's just like I just want to see a big battle. That's cool. But from a writing standpoint, yeah, it's a lot weaker than it could have been, which is unfortunate. All right, let's get to the last of the Starks. Based on that title, I really thought that more characters were gonna die in the Long Night. Like I'm like, oh shit, is Bran gonna die? Is Arya gonna die? Is Sansa gonna die? Nah, just Theon, who wasn't even really a Stark. Okay. But yeah, so the last of the Starks. It's not very good. Like Varys, again, like Littlefinger. Varys is one of the smartest characters in the show, and he dies like that. The fuck? Oh man. And then Cersei kidnaps Missandei and is and then kills her. And it's like, okay, I mean, why? What was the point? I guess like all that really does is piss Daenerys off. Did you forget that Daenerys has a dragon? Come on, man. Were you trying to get King's Landing cooked? Come on, Cersei. I thought you were smarter than that. Cersei does not do shit in this season. She does not do shit other than stare out windows evilly and have sex with Euron Greyjoy, who I think is the worst character in the show. Euron Greyjoy did not need to be in this show, and he has one of the dumbest endings ever. He fucking gets burned by Daenerys' dragon, and I guess he managed to jump off. He should have just died right there, but he didn't. He jumped off, he washes on shore, and he fights Jaime, and then he stabs Jaime, and he dies thinking he killed Jaime. Ultimately, Jaime dies from something else, but like, why give Euron, of all characters, a happy ending? I am the man who killed Jaime Lannister. What the fuck? Did the writers just love Euron? D&D, is Euron your favorite character? Be honest now. Whatever. The Last of the Starks. They had some good moments. Like, I like that moment where fucking what's his name? Sam is like, yeah, Gilly is pregnant, and we're gonna be happy together. And John's like, cool. I don't want it. Yeah, you already know all those jokes. John just says that the whole season. He's just really dumb. I didn't even mention. Oh shit! I forgot to mention that he's a Targaryen. So yeah, at the end of season 6, it's revealed that he's a Targaryen, and he tells Daenerys, he tells Dany, like, hey, Dany, you know, I am a Targaryen, and I technically have the rightful claim to the throne. He tells her this right before the Battle of Winterfell, which is weird because it's like, you know, if you died, it didn't even matter if she knew. So why'd you tell her? Why would you tell her this huge piece of news right before the biggest battle of your lives? That's weird. John, what the fuck? Listen. John has never been like the brightest bulb, but they just made him really dumb in the last 2 seasons. Like in season 7, where Cersei's like, "Hey, we'll help you as long as you agree not to attack us." And he's like, or as long as you agree to give up the North. And he's like, "No, I'm not gonna do that." It's like you could just lie and say that you are, but he doesn't. I get that Jon Snow's supposed to be kind of dumb, but they just made him so dumb in the last 2 seasons. And Tyrion. Tyrion really thinking that he can reason with Cersei. Come on, man. Cersei hates the shit out of you. Of course she can't be reasoned with. Cersei is like, she's just fucking nuts. When Cersei makes up her mind, she's not going to change it. So what makes you think that you can? The person that she arguably hates more than anybody in the world. Tyrion, what the fuck? But yeah, Last of the Starks was not a great episode. And Missandei saying Dracarys before she fucking dies was really dumb. But I was still on board at this point. I really was. I was like, well, The Long Night wasn't great, but it was still cool, right? And The Last of the Starks wasn't great either. It was just, but we'll see, right? These last 2 episodes are going to be great. I was still on board at this point. I really was. And then we get to what I consider the worst episode of the show. Yes, worse than the series finale. The bells. Alright, before we get into the elephant in the room, let's talk about how the fuck Arya and the Hound were able to get from Winterfell to King's Landing on horses. Seriously? Seriously. Alright. Whatever. Oh yeah, you know what? Fuck it. Before we get to Dany, let's keep talking about Arya and the Hound. So the Hound was revealed to be alive in season 6, and then he just kind of hangs around. And then he fights his brother, the Mountain. It's just like, alright, this is really dumb. He's fighting an undead zombie man while fucking Dany's dragon goes nuts in the background. Okay. I don't know. I feel like the Hound, honestly, I think they should have just left the Hound dead at the end of season 4. Because he really didn't add much to the show other than he had a few funny lines after that. I don't know. That whole fight scene was just dumb. I didn't even care. I really didn't. And then Arya, listen, I'm not one to have like a really simple ending for things, but I think Arya should have killed Cersei because as it stands, other than killing the Night King, I feel like Arya didn't really do anything in this show. I mean, I guess she also killed Walder Frey. That was kind of cool. But I feel like Arya just ultimately, I don't know. I feel like I don't know. I feel like she should have killed Cersei. I really do. I already mentioned Jaime fighting Euron, but Jaime slept with Brienne in episode 4 for some reason. And then he leaves her to go be with Cersei, ruining his redemption arc. And then he tells Tyrion, yeah, I never really cared for the people. I never gave a fuck about them. Even though I literally fucking killed the Mad King to save the people. Yeah, I never gave a shit about them. Whatever. And then he goes to Cersei and he's like, hey, I know that, I left you and stuff, but let's get out of here. And then they can't get out of there. And they end up burning, or not burning, the ceiling falls on them. That's so fucking stupid. Like, Arya killing Cersei would have been so much better. Or even Jaime killing Cersei. But no, they're together and they embrace as the bricks fall on them. That's so dumb. Come on. It's so lazy. And you know what's funny is that in the next episode you see Jaime and Cersei and they're covered in bricks. They're covered by like 2 bricks. Tyrion just grabs like 3 bricks and then they're there. But what's funny is you see the room and the whole room looks okay other than that one area. So in my head I'm just like, I mean, if you guys just hugged over there, you might have been okay. It's so dumb. And I'm like, why are their bodies still intact? Shouldn't they be like just a bunch of meat everywhere? All right. Is there anything else? Nope. All right, let's get to Dany now. Fuck! Okay, so I had no idea this was coming. So believe me when I say I understand the idea of Dany becoming the Mad Queen. I do. I honestly do. I remember in season 7, and even in earlier seasons before that, I'm like, Dany's downfall is going to be that she tries to help everyone, right? She's going to spread herself too thin. She can't save everybody. And everything that she's been working for, like all the people she loves in her life, are all crashing down around her. Like, Missandei dying and Jon being like, hey, I can take the throne. Like, everything Dany has worked hard for is all crumbling. And at the end of the day, she's a Targaryen, and Targaryens are fucking nuts. So I really tried to rationalize in my head that Dany would turn evil. But I just can't get behind it. At least not the way they did it. Here's the thing. Right. I could buy maybe Dany takes the throne and then the power goes to her head and then she becomes the Mad Queen. Or maybe even before this episode they built up to it before this. Yeah, her becoming the Mad Queen could have made sense. But as it stands, it comes out of nowhere. Who has the more rushed turn to the dark side? Daenerys Targaryen or Anakin Skywalker? Who? That's a really fun question. It is so much fun to compare Dany and Anakin. Oh, man. I always loved Dany. I loved her character. Always. I loved how heroic and righteous and pure she was, while also having a bit of a dark streak to her, Even though she was, like, other than Jon, the most likable and heroic character in the show, she still was pretty ruthless when she needed to be, Like killing the Tarleys, like executing them and burning all the slave masters. It was awesome seeing her just be Dany. Just fucking burn everything that gets in her way. And, she was just such a righteous person. I mean, one of her dragons, not all of them, one of them accidentally killed somebody in season 4, so she locked them up for an entire season. All of them. And even with all that being said, I could have. I really, really like the idea of Danny turning evil. I really do. I think that's actually kind of perfect. I love, on paper, the idea of Danny becoming evil and becoming the villain. I think that's badass. Not from just a, it's cool kind of way, but just like it just makes perfect sense. It's a tragic but fitting way to end her story. If you build it up right, you know? Like maybe have Danny take like as the seasons go on, not from the very beginning, but as the seasons go on, make her like maybe a little more accepting of kind of getting her hands dirty and, maybe sometimes killing innocent people. I don't know, something. Just foreshadowing is not character development. Just fucking have her do some evil shit throughout the seasons. Just write it more. You know? So Danny, I haven't even gotten to the fucking scene yet. Danny fucking forgot about Euron's fleet. She kills them, and then she's like, "Listen, I'm gonna take over King's Landing. I'm gonna fucking take it over unless you surrender." And Cersei's like, "Well, shit. All right. I guess I've lost. Time to ring the bells." So Dany's won. She has it all. She's accomplished everything from the very beginning of the show. She has had this goal and she's accomplished it. And she decides, fuck it. And burns the shit out of King's Landing. What the fuck? Come on, come on. Really? Men, women, children, horses, all of them dead. There's two ways you could have done this right. Number one, either, like I said, have Dany slowly turn evil over the course of the show, or number two, just like give her like a huge break from reality. Like just have her go fucking crazy. Like Azula. Spoilers for Avatar: The Last Airbender. Azula. I mean, she was already evil, but she went. In the last like 4 episodes of Avatar: The Last Airbender, Azula fucking loses it. She goes crazy. She hallucinates and she makes irrational decisions, and it leads to her becoming more monster than human. That could have made sense with Dany. But what made Azula's turn was that she was already evil to begin with. So taking an evil character and then making her lose her mind, you're going to get a monster. If you ask me, that's what they should have done with Dany. You could have her be righteous and good for like the first, like, I don't know, 4 seasons. And then have her slowly become more of an anti-hero. A little more ruthless as the show goes on. And maybe you should have killed Missandei earlier. You know? Maybe kill Missandei and then have it slowly turn Dany crazy, you know? And then after Missandei dies, you could have Jon tell her, hey, I am Aegon Targaryen and I am the rightful heir to the throne. So Daenerys is like, I lost my best friend and the fucking thing I've been working for is now, like, it doesn't even fucking mean anything. I don't have the rightful claim to it. And then maybe kill more of her friends. Fucking kill Grey Worm, you know? Fucking kill Jorah. She's losing everything and it just makes her go crazy. That's how I would do it. I mean, I'm not a fucking writer, so maybe I don't know. But it would, I don't know. I love the idea. Like I said, I love the idea of Dany going crazy. But it's just so rushed. It just doesn't make sense. It comes out of nowhere. It's so sad, man. It's so sad. I mean, in the last episode, she kind of sounds like she kind of lost it a little bit, but she still seems composed. She seems like the Dany we all still know, except she's just evil now. It's the same, like, personality type. Sort of calm and cool and collected. Except now she's evil. What is she even ruling at this point? There's no people left. She's just ruling an army. And even if this happened, this is not where things should have ended. I mean, when I okay, so taking what I said earlier about how Dany slowly turns evil as the show goes on, after she does turn evil and cooks King's Landing and fucking becomes the Mad Queen, you don't just kill her immediately after. After that, you have her be the villain of the show for like 3 seasons. Everybody now is like, "Oh shit, we just helped we spent all of our time helping Dany achieve the throne, and now that she has it, we need to get her the fuck out of that thing." You know, everybody teaming up to go against Dany. I don't know, something, man. It felt like they just needed Dany to turn evil and then die. It just feels so pointless in the end. Why even have Dany turn evil if you're just gonna kill her? You know, I don't hate it. I don't hate it. It's just so rushed, so it doesn't feel satisfying. Honestly, I tried to think of it in my head. Like I had to do the writing for myself. I'm like, well, okay, I guess there was this one scene where she was kind of mean. There was this other scene where something tragic happened to her. I don't like I had to like rationalize it in my head. Like, okay, this makes sense. No, I'm not. I'm just dumb. I don't get it. I really thought that. I'm like, am I just dumb? Am I just an idiot? Was I just not watching the show close enough? Like, seriously, when she turned to evil, and after I watched the episode and I sat down and I thought about it, I was like, maybe I'm just a fucking idiot. Maybe I wasn't watching the show right. Maybe I just saw Dany in a way I wasn't supposed to see her. But no. I'm sorry, man. Just Dany turning evil just doesn't work. I mean, it's just so rushed, man. At least Anakin had a motivation, and at least they built up to it. But here, it's just it's so disappointing. Seeing all the carnage she causes is just so disheartening. Dany was one of my favorite characters, and honestly, she still is. I still, like I said, I love the idea of her turning evil. If I turn my brain off and not think about it, I can enjoy that scene where she turns evil and cooks King's Landing. But as soon as I stop and really say, okay, let's think about the logistic behind the scene, it all falls apart. Which leads into the series finale of Game of Thrones, the Iron Throne. Okay, let me get up. I was kind of lying down, sorry. Alright. So, the episode starts out, and Grey Worm, who also decided to turn evil. I guess his makes a little more sense because he loved Missandei or whatever. He's just killing people, right? And Jon, being the good guy he is like, oh, my girlfriend's a bitch. I gotta go kill her. He talks to Tyrion, who goes to jail. I don't remember why he went to jail. Oh, he went to jail because he threw away his Hand of the King thing. You know, which was cool. Even though they made Tyrion dumber as the show went on, I still liked him up until the end. But that's just because I love Tyrion. Peter Dinklage is awesome. But anyways. Okay. Okay. So, Jon Snow, he talks to Dany. He's like, yo, Dany, what the fuck? What the hell? Come on. Jon is just flabbergasted at this, like everybody else, right? Okay. Alright. It's time to talk about this. So Jon goes up to Dany, and Dany has finally achieved what she wanted. She's like, I am the queen. Everything I've wanted to do since the beginning of the show, I have finally achieved. And she kisses Jon. For all of her faults, she did truly love Jon, I guess. Oh, and I forgot to mention, there's this really funny scene where Arya goes up to Jon, and she's like, Jon, Dany is evil. I know a killer when I see one. No shit, Arya! I know a killer when I see one. Are you fucking serious? It's like if I looked at Hitler and I was like, yep, I know a dick when I see one. I know a killer when I see one. I know a fucking dictator when I see one. Come on! So yeah, Jon goes up to Dany and he kisses her and he kills her. He stabs her in the stomach and she dies. What a dissatisfying death for such a wonderful character. It's just so lame. Like, was she really gonna think that John was just gonna be by her side the whole time? So John stabs Danny, and Danny dies. One of my favorite characters in the show is dead. You know, I'm a romantic kind of guy. I love romance stories. I love John. I love Danny. Them getting together on paper should have made sense, and I should have loved it. I'm I love tragedy. So the idea of John having to kill the woman he loves for the second time, well actually no, he didn't kill Ygritte, but him having to kill the woman he loves, on paper, I should love that. I love a tragic ending. But the way it's done is just so stupid. Like, did she really not think? Like, she just thought, yeah, John, the most the reason I love him in the first place is because of who he is, which is Jon Snow, a righteous guy. Does she really think he's gonna be by my side after I just committed genocide? Now I know what you're probably thinking. Oh, well, Danny fucking went nuts. No, she didn't. She just, oh my god. Well, yeah, she did, but not in a natural way. It's like I said, if she went nuts, like again, Azula was fucking banishing people, for no reason. She was making irrational decisions. So it would have made sense if Danny, in her her mental break, would have still genuinely believed that John loved her. But here, not only does it make Danny look crazy for no reason instead of a natural progression of her character, it makes her look like a fucking idiot. So much could have been done with Danny's character. First off, make her go crazy and evil as the show went on. And secondly, after she does go evil, don't kill her the episode right after that. Have her be the villain of the show for like 3 seasons. I don't fucking know. But yeah, John kills her, and for some reason, even though Grey Worm was fucking killing people in King's Landing for literally no reason other than being with the Lannisters, he's not gonna kill John, who killed the woman he believed in for the past like how many seasons? All right, sure. And then, yeah, really lame ending for one of my favorite characters, Danny. And then Drogon shows up and burns the throne, and then he takes her away. Maybe he took her away to revive her for a new spin-off show, because that's what they're doing in Game of Thrones now. They're making a bunch of spin-offs. Okay. I mean, who the fuck knows where Drogon went? Tune in to El Camino, a Game of Thrones story where we find out where Drogon went. But yeah, what a dissatisfying end. I just remember watching it. I was like, I wasn't even sad. And it's really easy to make me sad. Just kill off my favorite character. And I was just like, okay, she's dead. She's dead. And then we get into the last like major scene of the show, which is the scene where Bran becomes king. There's this really awful moment where Sam is like, "Hey, why don't we have the people vote for who should be king?" And then everybody laughs at him, which is just a really dumb moment. It's just like, yeah, we get it, democracy, whatever. But yeah, Tyrion, who was sporting an awesome beard, by the way. That was the best part of the finale. Tyrion's beard. So Tyrion, he shows up, and even though they're all like, we shouldn't listen to Tyrion because he's a prisoner, he's like, we should make Bran king, and everyone's like, okay. And why does Bran become king? Well, because there's nothing more powerful in the world than a good story. Well, I can think of a few things. But anyways, he's like, who has a better story than Bran the Broken? Literally everyone. Everyone has a better fucking story than Bran the Broken. Everybody has their own, like, choice for who they think should have been the Iron Throne in the end. If you ask me, I think it should have been Sansa. Sansa should have been on the Iron Throne in the end. It's cool that she's queen in the North, but I think it would have been better, a better ending for her character if she was on the throne at the end. I do think it should have been a Stark at the end of the story. If they wanted a happy ending, it makes sense for a Stark to be on the Iron Throne. But Sansa has been through so much and she's worked her ass off to get here. What the fuck did Bran do? Some people think Tyrion would have been a better choice. Some people think Jon would have been a better choice. I can see arguments for both of them. I think Tyrion makes a great Hand of the King. If you ask me, Bran should probably be a Hand of the King. I think he actually kind of makes sense. But yeah, Tyrion as Hand of the King is fine. You know, but Bran, I don't fucking know what they should have done with Bran. Have Bran do something else. Have Bran just be some weird kid in the background who just tells him information they need to know. And then even though he said in season 7, I don't really want anymore. He's like, why do you think I came all this way? To become king? When the fuck did you ever say you wanted to become king? Bran wasn't even likable at this point. There's this awful scene in season 7 where he tells Sansa that she was very beautiful on the day she was sexually assaulted. That is a disgusting scene. Who the fuck thought that was a good idea? There's also this other scene where Tyrion tells Jaime, or he asks Jaime, what's Brienne like down there? That's another really gross scene. Tyrion would never say that, ever. Yeah, I hated that scene where Bran's like, Sansa, you look so pretty on the day you were fucking fucking sexually assaulted. What a shitty scene. Who the fuck wrote that? Everybody has their own choice. If you ask me, I think Sansa should have been queen. She should have been on the Iron Throne at the end. Well, I mean, you know what I mean, because the Iron Throne was destroyed. But yeah, she's queen of the North. At the end of the day, I don't hate the finale. Because it did give satisfying endings to some characters I like Sam. You know, Sam achieved what he wanted to do, and he's happy with Gilly, and, you know, like I said, Sansa, I would have preferred if she was the queen at the end, but her being queen of the North, that's cool. Arya's ending, I think, is actually pretty perfect. The idea of her saying, I'm not cut out for this royalty stuff. I'm going to go off and explore. And I know this is not true, but my headcanon is that after she went off, she ended up in wherever Multiverses takes place. So, yeah. I'm just going to pretend that her last scene is her going off to Multiverses. That makes her last scene so much better in my eyes, because I'm like, yeah, she's going to go fight Shaggy. But yeah. By the way, even though I have my issues with how they wrote Arya, she was always one of my favorite characters, just because I liked her character. You know, I liked who she was. That didn't mean I liked all the storylines she was a part of, but I still liked her character. Yeah. But anyways. So, Bran becomes king. I don't hate it, but I would have preferred somebody else. Anybody else. But I don't hate it. I guess it kind of makes sense. Arya goes off, and we watch Tyrion straighten chairs for like 2 minutes. And also Bronn. I forgot about Bronn. Bronn is just like an asshole the entire show, and he learns nothing and gets no punishment for it. He just kind of ends the show by doing the same thing he always does. Whatevs. And then we get to the last scene of the show. Jon returns to the Wall. He gets banished there. He meets up with Tormund. And I actually like this last scene a lot. Jon meets up with Tormund, and he finds the wildlings, and he and Tormund go off, and they're going to take the wildlings to the Promised Lands. It's almost like he's starting a new adventure in a way. And I think that's a great ending for Jon. Honestly, even if this new Jon Snow show wasn't coming out, I'd be okay with this being the ending for his character. I love Jon. He was one of my favorites, and I'm happy with this ending. It's kind of optimistic and hopeful, just like his character. We all know he's not going back to the Wall. And I think Bran knew that too. You know, he banished him to the Wall, but I think he knew when he did that, he's like, Jon's going to go off and do his own thing. I love the idea of Jon just being a hero and taking the wildlings off to this promised land. You know, he's taking them back to their homes. And he's probably going to become a wildling himself. Jon's a natural leader. That's who he's always been. And I just love the idea of Jon Snow's story ending with him taking this group of people he cares about off to the promised lands. It's up to us to say if he made it or not, but I think he did. But I guess we'll find out when that show comes out. And that's Game of Thrones. Alright. Final thoughts? I love this show. Even with the last season, even the last two seasons, I would still put it in my top 10 favorite shows of all time. I adore it. And I honestly would rewatch the whole thing. Yes, the whole thing. Because, like I said, I like a lot of the stuff in season 8 on paper. Like Danny turning evil and even Bran becoming king. I could kind of see it. It's just the way they did it is really lame, you know? But that doesn't change the fact that the journey there was awesome. So many great, likable, realistic characters. So many awesome moments. You know, some moments I didn't even mention, like, you know, Tyrion firing that guy and Caitlyn talking about her why she hated Jon so much. You know, not hated, but just resented. You know, some characters I didn't even mention or talk about that much, like Melisandre or Davos or Gendry. You know, I love the show. I really did. It had so many great moments, and I still absolutely adore it. And the last season even has a lot of things I like in it. But it is a shame that it couldn't have ended any better. I don't hate the ending because it's not like the Dexter ending where just on paper and in execution it's a bad idea. Like the Game of Thrones ending, I like where the show ended up in the end. I like the idea of everybody's happy and Dany turned evil and they defeated her. It's just the way they did it that's very disappointing. But that doesn't change the fact that I love Game of Thrones. I love the world of Westeros. It's got so many awesome characters. Like my favorite character of the show, I don't even know if I could pick one. It changed all the time. Sometimes it was Jon, sometimes it was Dany, sometimes it was Arya, sometimes it was Tyrion, sometimes it was even like Cersei. That's how good this show was. And yeah, the ending's not great, but I'm still grateful that we got Game of Thrones. And you know what? If George R. R. Martin ever actually finishes the Song of Ice and Fire series, I'll read them. That's why I'm not reading them. Because the new book, I don't even know if that shit's ever coming out. But if I ever hear this book is coming out like next month, I will read all the Song of Ice and Fire books so that I can get the true version of this story. To be honest, I think Dany is going to turn evil in the books too, and I also think Bran's going to become king in the books. I think everything that happened in season 8 is also going to happen in the books, except for Arya killing the Night King. I feel like Jon's probably going to do that in the books. But yeah, in the end, as an entire show, I would give Game of Thrones a 7 because the last season really does drag it down. I mean, I would love to give it like an 8, but yeah, the last season does drag it down a little bit. Really, it's just the last 2 episodes where the show really fucking goes off the rails. Because even the last of the Starks had a long night. They're not great, but they still have a lot. They don't make me mad. They're not terrible. Last of the Starks, I just think is kind of boring and lackluster. And the long night, again, if I turn my brain off, I can enjoy that episode. Game of Thrones really doesn't go off the rails for me until the last 2 episodes. I know for some people they're like, oh, the show started sucking at season 7. Some people even earlier than that, they're like, the show started sucking at season 5. I enjoyed the show. I genuinely did. Even with my issues, I was enjoying the show up until season 8, episode 5. And I know some people say that the show is ruined for them now and they can't watch it anymore. I'm not like that. First off, I didn't spend 9 years of my life on this shit. I spent like 3 months. But also, I don't know. I think I really love a lot of what this show did. And to be honest with you, I could probably see season 6, like the last episode of season 6, as the ending of the show. Like if the last scene of that season is Dany going off to Westeros to take what's hers. You could have ended the show there with a title card saying Dany defeated Cersei, became queen, everybody lived happily ever after. The Starks all reunited, the end. You could have ended it there. But yeah, Game of Thrones. I love it. Could it have ended better? Absolutely. But I still love this show for what it was. And House of the Dragon? Well, we'll get to that later.